We've used advanced AI modeling to create two debaters who are smart, clear, and respectful, but firmly on opposite sides. After each statement, 5 other AI models score their arguments. This isn't about finding the ultimate truth, it's about watching how AI handles a real clash of ideas. Stay tuned to see who the AI crowns as the stronger voice in this experiment. Tonight's question: how do you prove or disprove the existence of God? On one side, Alex, a committed atheist who grounds his worldview in reason and evidence. On the other, Maya, a believer who also values science but sees it pointing toward a purposeful creator. Let's begin. Maya, you have the first word.
Thanks. Let me start by saying, I don't think God is the kind of thing you can prove the way you prove a chemical reaction. But I think you can build a strong case, the way you'd build a case in history or detective work by looking at the evidence and asking what explanation fits best. The fact that the universe had a beginning, the fine-tuning of physical laws, and the sheer existence of consciousness, those are clues that point towards something beyond matter.
I get the appeal of calling those things clues, but here's my problem. History and detective work still operate in the realm of what we can observe and test. When you bring God into it, you're adding an untestable layer. The universe having a beginning, sure, but we don't jump to, therefore, God. That's like finding a locked door and assuming there must be treasure behind it. The door's existence doesn't tell you what's inside.
Except if the locked door is finally built for life. The laws of physics, gravity, electromagnetism, nuclear forces are balanced so precisely that a tiny shift would make life impossible. If it's just random, we hit a cosmic lottery so unlikely it's like throwing darts blindfolded and hitting the bullseye every time.
Or we're just in one of many universes. Imagine a huge field of dartboards stretching to the horizon. Most shots miss. We just happen to be standing on the one dartboard with a dart in the bullseye, because otherwise we wouldn't be here to notice. It's not magic, it's statistics.
That's the multiverse theory. It's interesting, but let's be honest. There's zero direct evidence for other universes. If we're going to be skeptical, shouldn't we also be skeptical about inventing an infinite number of unobserved worlds to avoid the idea of a designer? That feels like a bigger leap than believing in a creator.
But you see what's happening. You're asking me to be skeptical of something unproven while asking me to accept something equally unproven, God. The multiverse at least follows from physical models we can test parts of. God doesn't. At least in physics, if our models break down, we can adjust them. With God, it becomes this flexible idea you can never falsify.
Yet we rely on unfalsifiable assumptions all the time. You can't scientifically prove that the laws of logic will hold tomorrow. But you trust they will, because everything we've seen points that way. God could be like that, an underlying reality that gives coherence to everything else. Just because you can't put him in a lab doesn't mean the evidence of his fingerprints isn't all around.
I think you're blurring trust based on repeated evidence with belief without evidence. Logic holding tomorrow is based on the fact it's held every day we've measured. God doesn't have that kind of track record, at least not in a way we can independently verify.
But you can look at human experience across history, cultures, times, places, and see a recurring pattern. People sensing something beyond themselves. That's not proof, but it's data. When a phenomenon is that universal, maybe it's telling us something real, not just a shared illusion.
Or it's telling us something about how human brains work. We're wired to see patterns, even when they're not there. Faces in clouds, conspiracies in coincidences. Our ancestors survived by detecting agency, assuming that Russell in the bushes was a predator. Religion might just be that survival instinct blown up to a cosmic scale.
That's possible. But then, Why does that instinct persist even when it doesn't give a survival advantage, when it actually costs people their lives, their comfort, their social standing? Martyrs in history didn't die because they saw faces in clouds. They died because they were convinced they'd encountered something worth dying for.
Strong conviction doesn't equal truth. People have died for communism, nationalism, false prophecies. Human beings can be completely certain and completely wrong at the same time.
True, but if human conviction can sometimes point to truth, and millions have independently testified to experiences of God, shouldn't that at least make you pause before dismissing it outright?
I do pause. I'm not saying they're lying. I'm saying personal experience isn't enough to establish an external reality. If it were, we'd have to accept ghosts, alien abductions, and every other claimed phenomenon as equally valid.
And yet, personal experience is often where we start in knowing anything. You didn't verify the love of your parents in a lab. You saw signs, felt it, trusted it. If God exists, maybe belief works the same way.
But the difference is, I could ask other people about my parents, compare memories, check records, multiple independent confirmations. With God, every person's version seems different. That's not what I'd expect if we were all perceiving the same being.
Or maybe that's exactly what you'd expect if God is bigger than any one perspective. Like light being both a particle and a wave, reality doesn't always fit neatly into our categories.
That's poetic, but also conveniently vague. When physics talks about light as a particle and wave, it's based on hard data. When you talk about God that way, it feels more like a metaphor than evidence.
All right, we've covered cosmology, fine-tuning, and human experience. Let's now tackle the question directly. Can God's existence even be proven or disproven in principle? Alex, you first.
Short answer, no. You can't prove a negative, and you can't prove something that can't be tested. The moment you define God in a way that removes him from measurable reality, you take him out of the realm of proof. That's why I say the burden of proof lies with the person making the claim.
But the same could be said for certain philosophical assumptions you live by, like that the external world exists and isn't just a simulation in your brain. You can't prove that either, yet you still believe it because it's the most coherent explanation for your experience.
True, but that's a minimal assumption. I only take it as far as I need to function. God adds a whole set of extra claims about creation, purpose, morality that you can't verify. Why accept those layers without evidence?
Because without them, some of life's biggest questions remain unanswered. If there's no God, then ultimate meaning, morality, and even human dignity become negotiable. Science can tell us how things work, but it can't tell us why we should value truth or kindness in the first place.
I think you underestimate human capacity to create meaning. Morality doesn't need a divine anchor. It can grow from empathy, social contracts, and reason. We don't need a cosmic parent to behave decently.
But human-made morality shifts with time and place. What's considered decent in one culture might be barbaric in another. If morality is just a social construct, then genocide could theoretically be okay if a society agreed on it. That's why I think we need an objective standard, something above human opinion.
Except that people who believe in God still disagree on morality, and sometimes use God to justify atrocities. Belief doesn't guarantee moral clarity. In fact, it can make people less likely to question harmful traditions because they think they're divinely approved.
I'll admit religion has been misused, but that's not the same as saying the idea of God is false. Bad science doesn't mean science is false. It means it's been applied wrongly. The same goes for faith.
But with science, you can run new experiments and get self-correcting results. Religion rarely works that way. Instead of discarding failed ideas, it often protects them behind the wall of sacred truth. That's why I lean towards skepticism.
And yet, skepticism itself can become a kind of faith. Faith that human reason alone is enough to grasp reality. What if reality includes dimensions reason can't fully reach? Like a radio tuned to only one frequency and missing the rest of the broadcast.
I'm fine admitting there could be more out there, but until we have a reliable way to detect it, I'd rather not pretend I know what it is. You call it God, I call it unknown. The difference is, I'm not giving the unknown a name and personality without evidence.
Maybe the difference is that I think some of the signals, whether in the fine-tuning of the universe, human longing for the eternal, or personal encounters, are strong enough to risk naming the source.
Risk, yes, but also potential self-deception. Humans are great at making stories feel real. That's why we have to separate the comforting from the true.
I can't run a lab test to prove God exists, but I believe the evidence, cosmic, moral, and personal, fits better with God than without. For me, it's like trusting the artist exists when you see a painting. I'd rather live as if there's meaning built into the universe than as if it's all an accident.
I don't claim to have all the answers. I just think we should be honest about what we don't know, instead of filling the gap with an answer we can't test. For me, reality is already astonishing without adding the supernatural. If there's a God, I want to find him by evidence, not assumption.
Thank you both. Let's see the final scores. Before we wrap up, a quick reminder: the scores you saw tonight weren't judged by us. They were generated by AI. That means they don't represent any absolute truth. This was just an experiment to see how artificial intelligence can drive and evaluate a debate. The real winner is for you to decide. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay curious, stay positive.